Chairman, I move that we exit out of executive session.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chair, just making sure I'm right. Mr. Chair, I make a motion on case number 2017-0178 and 2017-0193 that we accept the request for the subordination agreement as presented. Don't forget to call it.
Oh, we have a motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Passes unanimously.
Yeah, you'll have to sign the
So-
chairman's signature,
Here, and have Nancy notarize
or
it.
Jeff, or Jason. There's, oh, hand me those ones.
There's those. Nancy, notarize it, you notarize it?
I actually am a notary as well.
You're a notary? Okay.
She does
I
it.
can
All
take
right,
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very
When
much.
you go out, would you tell her that she can come back in now? Thank you. Do you know, I am a notary when I'm in uniform and it's a military. It counts as a legal notary. I don't even have to have a stamp for it. My signature for it.
Go ahead and come on up.
So every time I was in Afghanistan, everybody was buying houses. I'd have to go through and sign all these things.
Okay, next item on our agenda is regarding signatures for fiscal year 2023, grant administered by the Idaho Department of Lands for the Hazard Fuel Reduction Program.
Are we doing that first, or are we doing the?
I was going to say, so there are quite the few items before the commissioners today in regards to that.
Okay,
And I don't know the order that they are in. One of them is a letter officially notifying the state that we are interested in taking over the Cottonwood Valley as well as the Smith Gulch projects, and then noting that Wes, giving the contact information and direction that Wes will be our point of contact with the state. That letter, if approved and signed today, will kick off with the state contracts that will need to be written up, official documents, right, that will come back before the board for review and signature for all of the documentation that we'll need to begin administering those two grants that are funded and approved projects by the state.
okay. Well, that was
That's not where we're starting.
Wes Jones, well, that's the one right underneath it. Wes Jones, Emergency Director, signature on letter agreement.
Okay, yes, that's the one that I just
Do you want to start with?
If we could, because
That's the easiest one.
yes.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So, Wes Jones, Emergency Service.
I'm okay with it.
Any questions on that one?
Basically, we're saying we're gonna start the process.
Yep, so, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the letter and authorize signature on the letter for taking over the administration of the two grant contracts as presented.
We have a motion.
Yeah, Cottonwood Valley and Smith Gulch.
Okay, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously.
We'll submit that letter to the state today, then they'll reach out to Wes with the additional documents to then be submitted for agenda and review and approval by the board.
And Wes notified me that he was picked up something over in Boise this week, so that's why he's not here this morning.
Okay. What stays in Boise is supposed to stay in Boise. What happened in Boise is supposed to stay in Boise.
Don't bring the funk back here, man.
Okay, next then is the grant administration contract.
So those were submitted by CCOG. They were submitted to legal to look and review through things, and for review and discussion by the board to move forward, if desired, with administrative. They have one for each of the two grants that we just assigned to take over from the state, one for Cottonwood and one for Smith Gulch.
And I actually have a question on number 18. Bannock County needs to have all grant documents associated with this. You can keep copies as well at CCOG, but because we're the granting entity, we're the ones that are going to be audited, so we need all documents in our office.
Okay. So we would just need to,
Original.
all records, okay. Brian?
So the numbering system is, you look, it goes 11 and then skips to 16.
Uh-huh.
That could just probably easily fix, or to make sure it line, like all the numbers line up. But
Okay. And I'm sure you probably have,
So instead of reading May, just say this contract and all other records, or just all records?
we just have to be the host. And for, what is it? It's not Gadsby or GFOA standard. There's a thing, I saw in one of those things that says for grants, you have to have all of the,
Grant audit
it says
compliance.
everything, for grant audit compliance, all the original, everything has to be kept on premise. Or in your possession, I should say. Yeah.
Because we'll be the ones audited.
Yeah.
And that is something that we will do at CCOG, is we'll do a pre-audit of the entire project once it's finished, and then we'll give you a copy of everything that we've audited, and we keep a copy on hand too, just in case.
Just in case they come back and want to audit you guys as well. Yeah.
Well, just in case anything's missing or,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm sure we'll be in communication as the process goes too,
Yeah.
that Michelle will make sure that we have copies of everything.
Um,
At least financial.
But we
it's
do
the other stuff
want to
that
make
we're
sure
gonna
that
need
something
too.
to that effect is in place, that the originals need to be kept in our possession, because we have had some issues with original documents leaving the possession of the county that have caused some issues in the past. So I would just say that, however, we need that language to match those standards. If we could just get that put in. I mean, that's a pretty minor fix to point out.
I just have a quick question for Charity. Do you, based on your experience, what is an estimate for the hours that you guys would spend on something like this?
For this particular project, it's fairly new for us regarding how many hours it takes. I've seen in the past, the estimate was 200, which would be, when I did the math, I
Like 14,000.
put no more than 20,000, just because that's what our standard rate is on all of our other projects, is 10%,
Right.
no more than 10%. But if it does end up being only 200 hours or less, we can definitely change that for any future projects that come up.
Okay, I was just curious as to what your estimate would be for that, so, okay, good.
So Brian, it sounds like you've gone through it. Is there any concerns?
yeah, nope. I just was bringing out the numbering, but that's not a big issue. I just didn't know if they wanted to.
You can correct the numbering too. It is, having it jump like that, it does cause, I didn't even notice that, but I would say, let's just correct that and make sure, because in the numbering sequence, people can't say, well, is there another page or something that was supposed to be in there? So if we could fix that, and then just the 18.
To say all documents.
Yeah, just, we need to make sure that, that grant, because I know that that is something in the past that got us, that it was just a concern that we had that on for that, was making sure all of those grant applications and everything, because the clerk actually has to maintain those as well. Under state law, so let's not do that. Other than that, I think that those are some pretty easy fixes.
So do we want to approve it pending those two changes, or do we want to wait and come back? and see?
I think we could direct the changes and then just have the contract for Tuesday and have it signed. I don't think you guys would have to come back then. It's just make the change right there in the numbering system and have that, and then sign it officially Tuesday. Call it good, this would be my recommendation.
Okay. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, does it work for everybody?
Yep.
Cool. Other than that.
All right.
Do we need a motion to approve that pending signature? Or are we just going to sign it?
I think you just do the motion and the official when you bring in the
Okay.
final contract. Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. So now we're back to the grants themselves.
Again, I would like to start with the easy one, which is Big Onion, if you want to pull that to the top of your screen. So this project is one that has already been approved by the state, but is awaiting funding in their current process. They did have concerns, depending on how their funding they are waiting, right, if funds get turned back, if they get an additional allocation or something like that. This project could move forward this year, but if it doesn't, and we don't apply for it again next year, the project is dead. So they did recommend that while we wait to see if it's funded this year, that we go ahead and reapply for next year. That is why that there are two. They would also recommend that we move forward with one Western States Fuel Management grant That is abbreviated that WSFM. And then one hazard fuels reduction, which is HFR. But that is why that there are two of the western states in your packet today. Because if Big Onion gets approved this year, fantastic, we'll move forward. We'll pull that from next year and move forward with the Marsh Creek grazing application. Or then if the reverse is true, if they happen to run out of funding before they get to the Big Onion project, it's my understanding that that is a higher priority. And so we would keep that in the hopper for next year and then pull the Marsh Creek grazing one and await that for future years. Do we want to review all of them before we talk about signatures, or do we want to do each one individually?
Well, they're all the same, aren't they? I mean, it's
they're
just
project
same process.
identifications.
Same process, yes.
Now, are we gonna keep, like on one of these, it's 990,000, are you gonna break these down into smaller grant applications?
So that was, that's why I started with Big Onion, because nothing was changing from your packet. The other two applications have been adjusted, and I have new ones for you to review and sign based on the acreage today. But Big Onion is just as it was submitted in front of you. As it was approved, right, and ran through the process, so there's been no adjustments to that.
So how much are the grants that we're applying for? Two are 240 and one's 900 and something? Or
So not anymore. But then, so these are all, they go through an initial process that there's a lot of fine tuning over the next couple months. This is a really long grant process. Not even, as Corey described it to me, next year about this time, we'll understand whether or not our projects are kind of softly approved and are moving forward. I tried to get, because then one has a match and one doesn't, that we would need to figure out what the match is and put it in our budget and things like that. So I asked if like July, August, we would be able to know, and she couldn't commit to that.
So I need worst case scenario if possible, so I can make sure
Okay.
it gets put in the budget.
Gotcha.
Otherwise,
You then
might not
Not be able to
pursue the
match.
project.
Yeah, then it won't be there.
So the Big Onion, let's start with that one, since that's the easy one. That one does not require a match.
It does
It
require.
does, okay.
Mhm.
Matching shares, 300,000, okay.
So on this sheet, what is it? Oh, okay, never mind. I was reading it wrong. Okay.
Shanda, the match can come from other sources too, like the Grayson Foundation. and
Yes.
stuff. So that's the part that would be fine tuned later as
Yes.
well. This is like a.
Yeah.
throwing the bomber out.
Well, and the whole thing
Right.
too
Yes.
is some of these fuel reduction programs and looking at it, when I talked to one of the commissioners that they do it, and when the matching comes from these if those organizations don't want to provide they are the pass-through agent. If they don't want to provide the funds, they don't accept the grant.
Okay.
So the Big Onion, we might get approved for it, and if that grazing organization doesn't want to provide the match to do it, then it wouldn't be done. And so that's the whole thing is that's where those other counties and stuff have taken it, is they're just the pass-through. I mean, they still have to budget the money, to come in and come out, to make sure that they have that matching side. But there isn't, if those organizations don't want to participate and help put skin in the game, then those projects do not move forward from their commission.
And Nancy brought up a very good point. This is our very first hurdle, our throwing our hat in the ring, right? That yes, we're looking at doing these projects. There are lots of other steps throughout this process that refine and identify. There's maps to be made, things like that. There are a lot of other processes as we go through this. That the state is also, I spoke with them this morning, Nancy, they have other counties, like Commissioner Tubby talked about, that have been doing this for a long time, that they would be more than happy to get you in touch with, that could help, right, catch us up to speed, as well as Commissioner Huff gave me the city of Pocatello, Hannah Singer, that she's been doing this for years, and would be happy to help kind of guide us as we build this process, because they are 3-year grants. So, right, as we're looking at starting the 2 that we just took over, right, as these ones will be funded roughly in our fiscal year 24, right, we will be just closing out-ish, right, the 2 that we just took over, and we will begin potentially anything that may or may not be granted through this cycle in fiscal year 24. So it's a lovely frog hop of,
We're way out there.
yes.
Yeah.
Starting and completing.
Well-
This is a long-term.
So this is funded through the federal government, and the federal government runs on 18-month intervals in their budget. So that's the big problem, is we have the state budget interval and then the federal government interval. And so, yeah, but that's where a lot of them have been successful, is again, they would put all these projects together, and then if they didn't have funding source, the good thing is again, talking to them, a lot of the packets, it seems like it's kind of overwhelming, and one commissioner said, no, the packets are he's like, when you start getting into it, the packets are virtually identical. The only thing you're changing is your scope, which is a map that they said, we have our GIS produce the map, and here it is, you're highlighting the boxed area, here's your grid coordinates. He's like, we don't even have to go out to the site if we don't want to. He says, if it's an easy area to get to, they'll go maybe take some pictures and put along, from like a street view, and that's it. And he said it takes them, it's a very quick process to put, workload, it's not that difficult. And so that's the whole thing, is where there's a 17% is up to admin fees on a lot of those. There's things that way that they use for those funds to help offset in their different departments, and that's why they do it. But he said you have to be out there really working into the future on it, because it takes a while to get going. But he said once they got going, they have about $1 million every year.
So we should probably work on an indirect rate policy, so that we can start maximizing to the 17%. Because right now we don't have policy, so we're only going to
Yes.
get 10%.
Yes.
Worst case scenario.
So that's, and the whole thing is and they use, a lot of them use grant writer type, like CCOG, those kind of organizations, because then if you don't have the grants, you're not budgeting directly for that specific grant writer, or, in that program, but they do have enough, because you look at, like CCOG is a 10% or 10%, and then you're taking another 7% for basic administrative fees. So what's 7% on $1 million worth of stuff? That's a pretty good, how they do it. And that's just for their fire reductions program. So, anyway, I'm good with them. I kind of looked through all of them. Like I said, this is just the process to get started and throw our hat in the ring. This isn't committing to anything. This isn't, And again, if those organizations want to come forward and want to help support these and match these, then great, they'll move forward. And if they don't want to do that, then that project will not move forward.
And we can inflate the grants budget as a just in case. That's
Yeah.
all I wanted to be aware
Oh, yeah,
of.
totally.
Is just to have a just in case, if we're 3 at 240, or if there's one that's going to be like 900,000, that's going to be a bigger inflate. But that's easy to. It's easy to do.
Yeah. And the other thing too is just, once we do this a year or so in a row, hopefully it'll give us an idea of, hey,
Yep.
we submitted $10 million worth of grants and we got 500,000.
Yeah.
So I'm good with just doing them as a approval on all of them and moving them forward and get.
Well, let's hear what she talks about,
Okay, 'cause there
cutting the
was-
other two down.
Right, there was adjustments that I want to have before the board. So the next one, if you can go to the fuels reduction, so HFR Yago fuels reduction. So after a conversation with the state this morning, kind of like Commissioner Tubby was talking about, they did have concerns where the initial one in your packet had 600 some odd acres. If we were able to get the contractors, if we were able to get the workload completed in those 3-year time. And they would suggest, they gave us the recommendation to cut those projects back and just do them in chunks, right? Knowing that the work is out there, but just doing them in smaller chunks. And so then the one that I have before Commissioner Moser right now is adjusting that from the initial one that I submitted that was 600 plus acres down to 280 acres that is just south of the Lava Ranch area. So there's a couple different things that will give us better scores on this project, particularly being so close to human life and property, right? Giving us those fire breaks and being able to protect that will bump our score, as well as being close to the Downey watershed. That's also something that is a high priority to be protected in case of a wildfire. So both of those, as well as either last year or coming up that they're completing, there is a 9-mile project that they mentioned, and this is also in that same area. So we're piggybacking off a project that they're already doing, as well as bumping up and protecting against that watershed and Lava Ranch, that they felt that this would be a higher scored for all of those reasons. But again, what we can be able to complete in a year in a 3-year period. So I did adjust that to 280 acres, knowing that there would be additional work and additional project in future years that we'd want to continue. That was the only adjustment that was made to that one before the new one that Commissioner Moser has. And then, and there is no match on hazard fuel reductions, HFRs. Just to be, that is the difference between the two programs. They both do very similar work, but one does require a match. The Western States Fuel Management requires the match, and the HFR does not.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, with the Big Onion, we do have 2 Western States with the intent of pulling one. Right, if Big Onion goes ahead and gets approved this year, right, we're going to move forward with Marsh Creek Grazing. If vice versa happens and Big Onion doesn't get funded this year, we're going to move forward with that one as an approved project that's a priority, and we'll pull the Marsh Creek and just have it waiting for future years to go forward. There is an adjustment, though, that I made to that one as well in regards to the acreage. The same reasoning applies, how and why they had originally, I had 680 acres that needed to be treated in that area. But again, being able to be limited to time, money, resources, and what we could feasibly get done in the time period, I have adjusted that one to 230 acres, mostly along Highway 91, kind of near Downetta, is kind of the location they're talking about there. This one would require a match if approved and funded. But as far as to what Christy needed to know, I will get you the dollar amounts on those guys.
I need full dollars and match potential, but if we're going to have the districts match, then we don't need match.
Right.
I just need the full dollars so that we can inflate our
Yeah, you
our
just have
grants
to. Yeah,
overall budget.
yeah.
Okay, I'll just send you the 2 adjustment ones to the agenda request group. I'll send them there.
Okay.
So you'll have everything that is before the board today. And then, yes, and then let me know if you need anything else. So those 2 adjustments, changing the acreage down. The one for Marsh Creek that you have did not adjust the dollar amount. That one is capped and set at 240. The state is willing to put in funds. I swagged that number, but again, right, this is initial for our hat in the ring. That will be identified and refined as we move forward in the process. The one for Yago, that did drastically change from almost $1 million, the 900 that Christy mentioned. I think it dropped it to 4 something. Sorry, now that it's out of my hand.
Total 557?
Total, okay. Okay, yes. Yes, with the other, that the state requires.
462, 477 is contractual.
Okay. But I will get those completed applications to Christy, so she'll have everything that she needs there. Again, right, this is the initial process. This is a long-term, slow roll kind of thing, but they do kind of piggyback on future ones that we've done in the past. They like to see collaboration with the Forest Service for BLM projects that they have going on. So as these projects move forward, Wes will be able to more easily identify projects that will score higher for us and more likely have funding approved on these because of the being able to work and plan out, 3 years, 4 years at a time, kind of where Bannock County is heading. So.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see anything that was crazy with them. Go forth and do good grant writing.
So Commissioner Moser, if the decision is to move forward and sign these, those first 2 pages on each one of those need to be initialed. Those are things that we need to have in place. A lot of the same things that Christy went over in her initial meeting a couple weeks ago, as far as, right, that we are committing that we are going to follow all of the federal guidelines that has been proposed, that they keep the records, all of those things that Christy reviewed with the commission a couple weeks ago. That's initialing that we need to, and then on that second page there is room for only 1 signature page, and I had listed your name.
Okay.
I'm good. So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve signature on all 3 grant applications as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I was hoping that the X just meant that we have agreed to it.
I do apologize. I told Christy maybe we should put a flag at each little box, but I got outvoted.
Put your foot down.
The deadline for these grant submittals is today by 5. But as soon as the commission concludes with their business today, I'll go ahead and get those over to the state. And then they'll be in contact with Wes as far as moving forward with the process.
Will you email me copies of those?
Yes.
They may not happen, but if so, it'll be part of that.
Right? Put everything together, for sure.
Okay. I'll just let you discard these two.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Christie?
Dave? I don't know if I should present this or if Dave should, but.
Doesn't matter.
Christie, you probably pay attention to it. So Dave and I were talking last week because we were working on the public defense budget for his 2 grants. And when going through this, there was a question on an employee that Dave thought we had moved during budget time from the grant into a vacant position within his public defender's budget, in the regular county budget. That did not happen, so we are before the board to talk about if that can happen and if it can be made retroactive to help us absorb the additional office rent when we moved the entire office over there. So that's the start of the conversation.
And I told you when I talked to you that I thought during budget time that we did not agree to move anybody off the grant into county employees.
That's
That-
where,
That's the way I remember it.
yeah.
There's one spot that's vacant that was approved. There were some other ones that I requested to move in that were not approved.
Okay.
So
So-
there's one open spot.
You have an open line, and again,
Yeah.
I need to get my book down. There is one open line item,
Yes.
Right.
correct? We are not creating another line
No.
item.
No. It's a
Okay.
budgeted position that has been vacant since October 1.
Okay, so,
And so that was the ask, no new positions, it's just the same.
again, if it's a line item that is already in existence, I don't have a problem with that, because then that line item becomes full and you can't hire another person onto that. Then you're full on your line item.
Correct.
Attorneys. There's no other things that are there. The problem is, though, is we have, okay, yeah, you're gonna have, then it's paid out of indigent line item tax dollars, which actually, that wouldn't be a bad thing, because as the legislature's moving forward on what's going on, we might want to show that we are paying them out of indigency fees that way.
And then it's gonna be a wash anyway, because I'm gonna pick up the additional 60,000 that's owed on rent. That's just gonna come out of my formula grant.
like I say, I just remembered when
Yeah.
we talked about it, and it seemed to me that we'd said if they're a grant employee, we wasn't changing them.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah,
remember.
right,
I mean,
Because I remember the initial request is, I think there was, what, 3 that were,
Yes.
There were
wanted to move
one
over?
positions. Yeah.
That there were 3 grant positions that wanted to be created into the line item, and we did not create any more line
Well,
items. We
yeah.
left the line items the same. It's where this is a left line item. This is just an accounting issue then of, do we move the attorney into the created line item slot, or do we leave that line item slot open? And if somebody applies for the job, which
I wouldn't want to fill it.
But you've had it posted though, right? I mean, you're.
Well, I'm going to have a job, I'm going to have a vacancy again now anyway.
Well, but what I'm saying is you have you have an appropriated line item
With no one in it.
with no one in it. So you could go post it and say, hey, come, and we've approved money to hire somebody, and it's not being used.
Correct.
So that's what I'm saying is basically all you're doing is you're hiring the grant position into the line item position right now.
We're not increasing staff.
No.
Yeah, there is no
No
increasing in
increase in
staff. That's the main thing.
No.
And we're not creating new line items. That was the main discussion point that we had, is we wanted no new line items
Right.
created. This is just moving one to another.
Yes.
Because there's a vacancy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes, and those dollars are already spent on the rent.
Yeah, and then we're gonna, yeah.
And wages and benefits were already in
Yep,
Yes.
they're already budgeted for.
a budget.
Yeah.
Remember? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I may not have communicated that very well to you when we talked.
Well, like I said,
But I also wanted it to come before the board where this was going to be a change, so.
no, this is where it should have happened.
Yeah, it's always
Yeah.
better to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So,
And I appreciate
and it's in
Christie.
the records
Yeah.
right now, what we're talking about.
We all remember what it is.
So then if you choose to approve that, just let me know if you want to make it retroactive from October 1, or if you would like us to just make it effective.
Well, I think just like Terrell's talking, if the way we're talking about things changing, it'd be good to have that monies
Okay.
Shown
shown
in the indigency line.
for the total year, is what I'd say.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the authorization to move a public defender from the grant funded portion to the line item, which I don't have in front of me, is
You'll have a SAR approval
Provided.
form on Tuesday.
and authorize it to be paid from October 1,
Yes, effective October 1.
effective October 1.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Do you want to go October 1 of
21.
last year?
Yeah, October 1.
21, October 21. Thank you.
Now,
Sorry.
we have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes
I'll
unanimously.
email you that if you.
Promotions
can
are
get
team
it over
efforts here, guys.
because it's an October
It
deadline.
comes out better.
That's kind of a
Doesn't require
complicated
full
one, so-
process.
It comes out better that
Your
way.
signature
When you
and
said
theirs.
October, I'm thinking, which
So if you can have
October?
it back to me
Yeah, which
Monday.
one?
I'll send it to you
I will bring it.
possibly this weekend.
I will bring it to you
Okay, thank you.
in my hot little hand.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Shanda, back up.
She's back.
Shanda Crystal, Purchasing and Economic Analyst. I have 2 items before the board today. One, I had a couple of weeks ago, I had the copy care agreement with the Valley office before the board for both the Commissioner's office and HR with questions on both. So I've gone back and answered questions, and now I have one I feel is ready for signature. So I'll start with the one I didn't include, and that's HR's. So not knowing now that they're separate, what they would do with their staff and things like that, Valley Office wanted to do a 90-day window to kind of get an idea of how much they were using that, and then create a copy care off of that, so that they're still in, right, they've got a couple other months of that, looking to see how much about they use it, and then they'll be able to have all of those boxes filled in. That's why a lot of them were blank. I didn't realize that when I came before the board the first time. So it'll be another couple of months, and then they'll settle on the number of copies that they anticipate throughout the year, and have that copy care before the board. The one before you today is the Commissioners. I had 2 questions on that. One being that there was a belief that the copy care was included in the first year. So when I talked to Jim about that, he said that's never been the case.
Carol, we pulled that out of somewhere.
The what?
The first year being free on the copy care. You and I both thought.
He He did remember having a
Cool.
conversation with you and Gordy about it.
Okay, good.
Yes, so he
So
did.
at least I wasn't like completely out.
No, I was pretty sure that there was, because most of those leases, whenever they've done them in the past, the first year is always included, then you start up in the second,
Right.
but.
We're wrong.
At least according to Mr. Park.
Okay.
The second question we had was what exactly is that base charge up there, the $330? So what they did was took our anticipated use between the black and white and the color, times that by the not dollar amount, they're pennies, percents of pennies, to get a total year, and then divide it by 4. So we would anticipate that we will pay $330 each quarter, and then settle up at the end as far as if we go over, if we do 10,000 black and white copies, right, we'll pay for the additional copies. If we are way under, that we could request, but it's not often that they give us a credit. Yeah. So those were the 2 questions I remember from them.
Okay. I'm good. So, Mr. Chair, make a motion that we approve the contract with Valley Office Systems for the Commissioner's copier.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Christie did want to make certain that we had budgeted also. We do have a line item right there. It was based on previous year's usage of 1 machine, not 2. So we will watch that as we go through everything. If we need to identify additional funds, that will come up for the board as well. But we'll watch it. This one for the Commissioner's office is cheaper than the last time was, but now we have 2 versus 1. So we'll watch it as it goes through. The second item I have before the board is a recommendation to award architectural services for the museum roof project. That went out to bid in
So-
mid.
Before, I also have Valley. Is that another one? Oh, yeah. I have Valley
Yes.
again.
Yes,
A
for the event
signature on,
center.
okay.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and I can make, no, sorry. I don't know anything about that one. We went out to bid in mid-January for architectural services in regards to replacing the roof on the museum, asking for proposals. Those have come in. We had 2 companies submit proposals. Our anticipated budget for the project is $130,000, and then we guesstimated that about 10% of that project would be needed, about $13,000 for architectural services, was what our estimate was. So as we sent out requests to the 3 companies here in town, if they were interested to please submit proposals back. We did receive 2 back. We received one from Booth Architecture and one from Myers Anderson. And I would be my recommendation. We reviewed them with Hal and his experience in that world as far as to make sure that they were capable of doing the work and being able to be responsive to our needs in the project. I would like to recommend we move forward with Booth Architecture. He proposes a fee of about $6,500 based on 5% of the estimated project budget. If that is approved, I do have letters awarding it to Booth Architecture and then thanking Myers Anderson for submitting a proposal to us.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we award the contract to Booth Architecture as recommended.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. Potential spam. Georgia, Augusta.
Your student loans could be repaid.
Talking to you about your car warranty.
Once I contact Mr. Booth about his proposal and getting the bid, I'll understand better how long that initial work might take him, and then we'll be able to really engage in the roof project as a total. That's going to be issued as an addendum to that solicitation, as well as we're obviously going to extend deadlines that have since passed.
All right. So did anybody talk to the fair, it's not the fairgrounds, this is up at the event center?
Yeah, it was the Ag Extension Office.
Can we change the name of that? That's super confusing.
What did they?
It says fairgrounds.
Yeah. Well,
I think that this is actually
Is that-
Scott's.
is that Scott's or is it the?
Because I have to start reporting on leases. If
Yeah.
we can, make sure that the name on that is whoever it is, supposed to be, just line through and put who it is.
Oh, yeah, this is,
That'll help me immensely
I thought-
when I have to go back and look.
yeah,
at
this
it.
needs to be the Bannock County Event Center. This needs to
Yeah.
not be, I thought it was the Ag Extension for some reason.
Yeah, when I talked,
No.
I looked at it yesterday, I talked to Christie, and
Well, let's
this is,
have
this
them,
needs to be changed.
get it changed before we sign it then.
Okay.
Let's just hold it down and get it Tuesday.
Agreed.
I think it still has Tiffany as a contact person.
Yeah, let's fix that.
So, would you take care of that?
Yep.
I'll go ahead and hand that over to Braden. Let's get them corrected. Okay, with that being said, anything else?
Nope.
We are adjourned.